Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to Popternative. This is the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions, the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, news, lifestyle, everything really, depending on the guest we talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats, and you will recognize my guests from a lot of really cool TV shows, including, of course, Schitt's Creek, and dropping on Netflix this week, Ginny and Georgia. Jennifer Robertson is with us. Jennifer, welcome to Popternative.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you. Hello.
I'm really excited to be here. I mean, it's kind of like a tale of two interviews because I know there's a show that we got to bring up, but there's a show dropping this week as well, right?
You know, my past, my present, it's all going to blend.
It's crazy. Is it a little? It's pretty crazy too, with the fact that Schitt's Creek has just been popular, winning all these awards and everything, and you're focused on talking about that, you've been working on that. And now Ginny and Georgia's kind of launching, and this is another show that you've been working on, and it's Calm Before the Storm. So that's an interesting time for you as well, Jennifer.
It is. It's surprisingly quiet thanks to the pandemic.
So this is obvious. I mean, this is like Netflix is obviously just pumping out amazing shows over and over again. Ginny and Georgia is one of those. You were in that show. Talk a little bit about what people can expect from Ginny and Georgia.
People can expect so much from Ginny and Georgia. There's sort of so many exciting storylines happening. There's things happening with the grown-ups. There's a lot of complicated teen stuff happening with the younger cast. The cast of the show is a really strong cast.
Absolutely.
They're great. There's some real new faces there, and they're all excellent. And of course, Brianna, who plays Georgia, is the consummate professional. That lady, I saw her mess up a line once, and she was there every day, and she just basically would go home. They asked her in another interview what she did, did we all go out and stuff? She's like, no, I went home and learned my lines for the next day. She was such a pro and such a nice person.
And it's one of those things, because I believe that was shot in Toronto, correct?
Yeah.
And
as was Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What show? I don't think I've ever heard of it.
It's called Schitt's Creek.
I've never heard of it.
Check it out. That's all.
But we're gonna get into that, of course. But it's interesting too, because there's a lot of really cool, people knew a lot of shows and a lot of movies filmed in Vancouver. Toronto is just rocking where there's a lot of shows, and I find it interesting because it's a Netflix show, and it's going to be on the States, and it's getting promoted, but it's a lot of Canadian talent is in this show as well, which is important.
A lot of Degrassi faces.
Right.
Including me. I played Cece Goldsworthy on a couple episodes of Degrassi. So a lot of Degrassi people you'll see there, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you were in Degrassi. I just realized that. That just hit me because I know shout out to Rhea Black, who played Sav. He's in this.
Totally.
And he's been on the show before. And absolutely. But it's pretty cool. This show seems to be obviously that ensemble cast, and a lot of the characters go through kind of a lot. But you talked about Brianne, prepping for it. But it's hard when a lot of these characters are kind of going through kind of roller coasters of emotion, and it's not an equal playing ground. They're kind of ebbs and flows, right? As an actor,
my character goes through nothing pretty much until the very end. She's good.
That's true, but that's not the case for other characters in the show. It's emotional. So, I mean, what do you think is when people are reading the script, what's going through their minds when they're reading the script for Ginny and Georgia with these characters that are very complex when you first meet them?
I mean, I think they're all very good actors. I think that's a big part of it, and it's exciting as a young actor to play these really deep, and I know our show creator, Sarah, she wanted to talk about some very real situations that teens go through, and that shows in the script. And, some of the table readings, I mean, there were always laughs too, but some of the table readings were pretty heavy.
Well, no, there's moments in this show that hit really hard.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of and you expect something's going to happen, but then when it actually happens, it's whoa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess it's time to talk about another show right now. I mean, we talked about it before we started. I mean,
We did.
you said it before. I mean, people are losing their minds over this show.
They're losing their shit.
They're losing their shit. I mean, okay, so the Emmys and the popularity on Netflix, people are losing their minds. I mean, that's the obvious. But I want to know for you, in your career, Jocelyn Schitt, on that show specifically, when did you realize or know that there was something special with this show? Was there something that happened or a call you got or something on social media? Is there anything besides like the big
Besides
accolades?
being at the Emmys?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
you know, obviously those Emmys are a thing, and we didn't get to go the year that the show won a whole bunch of awards, but we went the year before.
Yeah.
Also,
Congrats, by the way, to you and the cast. I mean,
Thank
you,
you.
amazing.
Thank you.
So cool.
Thank you so much. But I think that one of those moments was when we were at the Emmys, not this year, the year before, is people dress you.
Yeah.
And I was dying inside because I had like $300,000 worth of diamonds that somebody had just loaned me to wear. And I was like, why would anyone put like, until then I shop at Claire's, right? That's where I get my fine jewelry.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's $300,000 and I was staying at a friend's and flying out early the next morning. I was like, how much house insurance do you have? Are you okay with me leaving $300,000 worth of diamonds? Because someone will pick them up later. And it felt shifty. But anyways, it worked out. So that was certainly a moment of that. But I think it took a while with the show. So it was a little bit like a lobster in a pot of boiling water because we were making it for several years before it really gained a lot of popularity. I think it was when it went on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it just kind of started rolling downhill. And
it is gain popularity is an understatement. Like this show caught wildfire. And it's interesting you mentioned the Netflix thing because I find as soon as it was kind of available on Netflix, I saw it right away. Like I had a lot of friends that watched it before it was on Netflix on CBC. Yeah. But then when all my like friends from the States, when they were able to find a seat, like they watched it right away and loved it right away, which is crazy. Yeah. I mean, how does it feel? I mean, your character has some really cool hair in the show.
Yes.
I mean, what's it like playing Jocelyn Schitt?
It was the best. It was a delight. She was such a cool woman. She was so confident in who she was and unflustered by all of the roses. And I mean, all of us are just incredibly grateful. You don't know what shows people are going to take to and love. And obviously we're all so incredibly grateful that audiences feel the way they do about the show.
You said it, probably one of the greatest quotes of all time. You said people are losing their shit, literally. I mean, diving into it deeper, Jennifer,
yeah,
it's funny, it's charming. There's a lot of really cool relationships. It's compassionate. There's a lot going on in Schitt's Creek. From your perspective, from kind of being on the show, shooting the show, and then seeing everyone's reaction, what do you think is hitting stride specifically with the audience and Schitt's Creek? Like, why do you think they're liking it? Is there something you've noticed that they're really gravitating towards?
Well, I think obviously it's the stellar cast and the comedy of it. I think it's a couple of things. I think it has such a heart. Mm-hmm. And I think people it's two things that people needed during these times. They needed something with a heart and they needed something to make them laugh. And so I think it was the combination of those two things really made it something. And that multi-generational, like we hear from everybody that, teenagers and their parents and their grandparents would all watch the show together, which is so awesome. It was an experience for families. There's so many families that watched it together, which I love so much.
When the show was winning all the awards this year at the Emmys and Dan kept going back to Dan, what was your reaction when you were kind of seeing all that happen? Like, I want to know what your actual reaction was.
I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I was in Vancouver. All the people that were there for that little mini gathering that they had with all the testing and the masks, they were already all in Toronto, all those people. That's why there were quite a few of us that weren't there because we didn't feel like it was safe to travel people, obviously, at that time.
Yeah.
So I was back here in Vancouver watching with my family, just screaming at the top of I couldn't believe it.
Because it's funny, because they do the categories in a row, right? Like they do drama and they do comedy. That was the one thing I'm watching with my parents. Like, they kept going back.
know.
the same show.
Here we are again.
Because we knew there was a couple coming, but like it was like
No.
it was amazing. It just kept going back to him.
The sweep was really something to watch.
Does it
Really.
also? Do you think? I mean, question for the whole cast, but you specifically.
Yeah.
When you see that though, it tells you two things. One, it says, "Okay, we're doing something right. This is awesome." But does it not motivate you to kind of get back in there and do more because people love it? Like it's interesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, Dan, to his credit as an artist, had a very clear idea of how long he wanted the show to go and what the story was that he wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people are sad that we're not making more. I wouldn't. There are no concrete plans of any kind to do anything, but I wouldn't, think it was out of the realm of possibilities if, a year or two down the road, we did something. But everybody's so busy doing amazing shows. Like the whole cast is springboarded to all these.
Well, I think that's the thing too that I think gets lost in translation a little bit. We're like ending and canceled and everything. Like there are shows that are meant to be a certain amount of seasons, and people just need to deal with that, right? Like I remember like when they announced Ozark was like ending after this final season on Netflix, people lost their minds, right? But it's like that's it.
That's the story. Otherwise, we got to bring in like babies or stuff, and then it gets weird, or Alf, or like you have to start adding components that you never wanted to add to the show. So, yeah,
it is crazy. But the thing is, I mean, we're here talking, on Popternative, which is a show. My show reaches a lot of audiences, like Popternative all over. Schitt's Creek reaches a lot of audience, but we are both. This started in Canada.
It did.
And it's just so, like, I see the smile on your face. I mean, like, that stigma that I grew up, like, I'm a 90s kid, right? So that stigma of, like, Canadian shows weren't as good as American shows, that was a thing, right? That's thrown out the window right now, especially in comedy.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Remains so strong in the comedy category. We just keep... I have so many funny Canadian friends, the Baroness ladies, like there's so many great comedies still coming out of Canada. So, I mean, we only, it's a percentage thing. We only get to make a certain number of shows. So only so many shows can be great out of 100 shows, it's just the way it works. And so we just have to get money to keep making shows and make more shows, and then we will have more great shows come out of that.
But I mean, for the comedy specifically, I mean, Schitt's Creek, Letterkenny, Kim's Convenience, Workin' Moms.
Workin' Moms.
I mean, those are all like Canadian shows I just brought up.
I know.
I think people lost their minds too, where I was talking to Dylan Playfair about this when he came on the show. I mean, Brad Pitt at the Oscars, I don't know if you saw that, give a shout out. They asked him, how do you feel about all these awards for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Yeah. And it was E-Talk, right? And he was like, I feel much better about your show, Letterkenny. Yeah, he said that. Yeah. And then Edward Norton tweeted out something about it recently. It's crazy that that happens. Schitt's Creek, too. I saw a lot of testimonials for that show.
I think the one that really got us recently was Patrick Stewart. We're like, Sir Patrick Stewart. And then he actually did like an interview with Eugene, Catherine, Dan, and Annie. And it was just like, none of them could believe they were sitting there talking to.
Absolutely. Now, I do have to do this. I don't know if I'm going to regret doing this, but you're funny. You're on the show. You're so funny. You're hilarious. And are you a fan of the dad jokes? Do you like the dad jokes? Or are they just kind of not in your forte?
Listen, I'm down for any jokes.
Okay. Because
I'm open to all dad, mom, aunts, uncles. I'm open.
I happen to be a dad. I happen to be a dad joke connoisseur, which not only do I have the dad jokes for you, I have them on rapid fire, okay?
Oh, wow.
Jennifer, did you hear about the kidnapping?
No.
It's okay. He woke up.
Oh.
Or, you shouldn't trust those stairs in the background. Those stairs, I don't like them because they're always up to something.
Oh, no.
Did you know that the shovel was a groundbreaking invention? I just found out about that.
Wow. You do have...
I used to work at that shoe factory I was telling you about, but I recently quit because it was so soul-destroying. And then finally we went, you said, we're talking about chicken before. I mean, we went, there's that restaurant on the moon too. Such good food, zero atmosphere. Yeah, I know.
That's my favorite. That is my favorite. I'm going to repeat that one.
But it's funny because it's funny how I did this because I remember it's crazy that it's already been like a year of like COVID and like pandemic. Like it blows my mind.
Yeah.
But I remember one of the first shows that I started doing a lot of these like virtual interviews with was Outer Banks that came out on Netflix. And they're doing a lot of interviews, right? They're doing tons and it's crazy, right? And I'm kind of like, you know what? Like, obviously I have the same questions I'm going to ask them about, you know, getting ready for the show, popularity. But I'm like, I kind of want to do something that like no one else is kind of doing because they're getting the same questions. So I just said, you know what? I got this, like I had this dad joke calendar and I was like, you know what? Let me just try it. And
Are you a dad or do you just do dad jokes?
I am not a dad, but I do the dad jokes. And you're the second person to ask me that. The first one was Jamie Kennedy. And he was like, are you a dad? Like, why are you doing, like, he was like concerned. He's like, why are you telling me these jokes? Are you a dad? And like, that was a regret and everything. Yeah. But, I did these dad jokes in the cast of Outer Banks and people, they were losing their minds and they loved it. Yeah. And then some managers and publicists were like, you got to do the dad jokes. Like people are loving the dad jokes.
The no atmosphere, that's solid. That is
I know.
Solid.
It is a good one. Before we wrap up quickly, I mean, Ginny and Georgia is going to drop off very soon on Netflix, which is Calm Before the Storm. It's crazy. And then there's Schitt's Creek and people continue to watch that. I want to know what were some kind of, because like, whether you've done it, whether you're doing it for like 1 year or 25 years, there's always going to be learning experiences. So I kind of wanted to know into whether it's people you met or people you learned from or certain things for you. What were learning experiences for you on Ginny and Georgia and on Schitt's Creek, Jennifer?
Well, I can tell you immediately the learning experience for me on Ginny and Georgia was learning sign language because I don't know sign language. And that was a really interesting challenge for me. I had a coach and there was a lot of it sort of got lost in the cut, but there was quite a bit for me. And I really wanted to honor the deaf community by doing it properly and not doing a half job of it. So it created a new bar of nervousness for me on set, where before I would just get nervous on set sometimes. Now I say to people, well, it's fine. As long as I don't also have to sign, I'm not nervous. As long as there aren't people staring at a monitor, making sure that not only my lines am I blocking right, but also that I'm signing properly. So I learned a huge thing there. I learned a lot about the deaf community. The actor who plays my husband, Chris, was a really patient, lovely human being. So that was a big learning experience on Ginny and Georgia. On Schitt's Creek, oh man, 6 years. I learned to be professional, be confident. Not that I wasn't, but Eugene and Catherine in the very early days set such a high bar for everybody in terms of just being a professional actor. And there's zero attitude from them at all. They are the nicest people. And so I learned that, you know, the more grounded everybody is in a show, the more enjoyable it is to go to work every day.
Absolutely. No, for sure. Yeah. Ginny and Georgia. Yeah. Like it's what was when you get the role and you know what it's going to be, what's going through your mind? What's the process with that? Like, I mean, it's the sign language, but like,
well, I didn't know about the sign language when I got the role.
Okay.
They had cast me earlier and then did casting later of my husband. And so I only found out a couple weeks before we started shooting.
Oh.
And I honestly didn't know how challenging it would be. And what was interesting is also Felix and Sarah, who play our kids, did a little bit of signing also. And they picked it up like that. Like they're like fresh 20-something brains were like, oh yeah, I got this. And I'm in my mid-40s, just like, you can hear the gears turning in my brain going, hands must do this now. Mouth does this and hands do this. It was wild. It was wild. So it was a great experience though in the end. And hopefully the deaf community forgives me for any of my blunders.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
You too. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So Ginny and Georgia is dropping this week, and of course tomorrow, which is crazy.
February 24th.
Has it hit you?
No, it'll hit me tomorrow.
Very good answer. And Schitt's Creek. It's out there.
It's everywhere.
And where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
They can follow me on Instagram at Frenifer.
Okay. Seriously, congrats to you and the cast and crew of Schitt's Creek, because groundbreaking is an understatement, especially being Canadian show. Incredible. So just thank you as well. It's amazing. And all the best with Ginny and Georgia.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to talk to you.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, it's Jennifer Robertson and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.